And today we've got a very special guest, podcaster, comedian, ex-con. Can I call you that?
Sure,
I don't
sure,
know. Sure, why
sure.
not? So it's an absolute pleasure to have Johnny Mitchell on the podcast. How's it going, brother? You good?
Everything's good, man. I'm a little I'm drunk. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Yeah,
1:30. I'm celebrating my
it's the
independence from you fucking dirty, limey Brits. And it's 1:30 and I'm
treacherous
half in the
bastards.
bag, but that's all right. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's I there's a great I saw a t-shirt a guy had the other week, and he's a British guy that lives in Salt Lake City, and he said happy Independence Day, you treacherous bastards, and he's got it all over his t-shirt. I love it.
Nice, nice. Hell yeah, dude.
um yeah, so happy 4th of July,
Thanks,
dude.
man.
Amazing. I was out there recently, actually, in the US. I've never been in the US on the 4th of
Mm.
July, but it's such a good vibe, right? It's such a
Yeah,
great
it's a
atmosphere.
time when Mexicans bring their illegal fireworks out, and you don't know if it's gunshots or not. That's what the Fourth of
Listen,
July is in actuality.
it's but you're back in Portland now,
Yeah,
right?
I'm from Portland, Oregon, where I'm from
Mm.
originally.
What was the reason for heading back? You're doing a tour at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on tour, but right now I'm kind of just back here, just trying to relax a little bit. I'm hanging out with the family, and just trying to rest
Mm.
a little bit, right? Because all life is just
Sure.
work, 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 go, 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 airport, airport, airport. Motel,
I know the
hotel.
vibes.
So yeah, yeah. So I'm chilling, man.
So let So what I quite like to do is just to, I mean, before we get into like the hair stuff and all that sort of stuff, I'd like to sort of just go back to the very sort of start. I mean, you mentioned just there that you're originally from Portland, Oregon, but just roll right back to the beginning because dude, I'm going to be honest, your story is pretty
Hmm.
wild, and it's got lots of twists and turns. But run me through like sort of your upbringing, where you grew up, what family life was like, and how you got into the predicament you got yourself into, and all that jazz.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well,
start from the
I
beginning.
mean, look at that's a sauna behind me. My parents are doing pretty well. I mean, look, it's a sauna that it's not built into the house. They ordered this shit and they put it all together. They got a fucking sauna. You know what I mean? We could have been doing worse. We didn't grow up in the flats or whatever you people call it, the projects, right?
The projects, yeah.
I didn't grow up
Council
in
estate.
council house. Shout out to
Mm.
good show. What the hell is that called? Anyways, top boy, top boy, top
Top
boy.
boy. Yes, absolutely. Deshane and
Exactly.
Sully.
So I didn't really have a Duchesne and Sully kind of upbringing, but it was, the big tradition in the Northwest of the United States is marijuana trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's where
Mm.
it's grown,
Mm-hmm.
it's where it's harvested, it's where it's produced en
Mm-hmm.
masse. So this is where it comes from. And a long time ago, before some of your listeners can remember, well, actually, no, they're all old. They're losing their hair. So yeah, they should. They remember. They remember when marijuana was like a drug. It was a narcotic. Until
Mm.
like 10 years ago. So that was, that's how many people in our culture just got money. And when I found out, I was a pothead like everybody else in high school, and so I dabbled in it and in selling it. But I would hear about these guys that would like older brothers of friends of mine, or even their fathers. I found out that they like did this shit for a living, and so I just kind of pursued it, and I gave it my best. And
Put you all into it, yeah.
by the time I was 23, 24 years old, I had shipped, you know, $10 million worth of pot all over the United States through the mail and the USPS. So yeah, that
Right.
was, and because this is where the pot comes from, and when I send it to a place like Florida or North Carolina or New York, I can fetch like triple what I pay for it. So that's the arbitrage. That was the hustle. That was the way that you became like rich. Yeah, you could actually. I'm like, can you make millions of dollars selling weed? Back then, you could that way. And it was something that I recognized. Like we all knew it was going to be legal very soon, so we
Mm.
were like getting in on it while we could. You know what I mean? Like we were. That was the mentality, the sentiment, even back in like 2008, 2009 was like, oh, we got to get rich. We got to make as many millions as we can before the laws change. And it's taken over by, private equity and hedge funds and all this shit. And, I never wanted to be like in the marijuana industry, like the way it is now. You know what I mean? You go to conventions, you hang out with a bunch of weirdos. It's just sketchy and it's dumb. It's a dumb culture. Oh, great, you're a fucking
Would you?
pothead. Cool. You know what I mean? Like my grandma
Yeah, I
puts
do.
CBD lotion on her nipples to get her going. So it's like it never. I liked the outlaw part of it. So I knew once it was no longer an outlaw thing, I wasn't going to be. I wasn't going to be into it. You know what I mean? So so yeah, so just through making connections and finding the right suppliers, and back then that was like Mexican cartels who were growing it in Southern Oregon, Northern California. uh, I would, they would supply me, and then I had people buying from me in all of those different parts of the country, mostly on the East Coast and the Midwest. um, and I used for 90% of, and these are thousands of pounds that I moved. uh, I mostly used like the United States Postal Service.
So how are you distributing it across the US? Because of course, I mean, you said you're using the United States Postal Service, but how are they finding? How are the customers in New York and places like that finding you?
Oh, well, that's just through years and years of rubbing shoulders in the criminal underworld. There's no,
Yeah,
that's just luck. That's just luck and
yeah,
timing, and you know what I mean? Just living that
yeah.
life. It
It's
finds you, to be honest. Like that's like if you search hard, and I don't know, it's hard to explain, you know what I mean? Like you're just, if you put your mind to it, you could do almost anything. And so it's pretty nutty now that I think about it. Like I had, organized crime groups, like Dominican drug, like these are like professional drug dealers, uh,
sure.
buying 50 pounds of like high grade, Mendocino, Humboldt County marijuana from me every week. It's nuts, dude. It's like the whole in Harlem, New York and shit like that. And I'm just a white kid from fucking, I gotta fuck, look at that.
From
I
the
got a sauna.
sauna, yeah, from a house with
Yeah,
a
so
sauna,
it's
yeah,
just very
exactly.
unlikely. So it was kind of surreal when it was happening. But yeah, there was no Bitcoin. I mean, I think Bitcoin came out in like 2009. So I mean, there was
That's right.
no. I don't think dealers yet were paying each other like that. I mean, certainly, no, I never saw it. So they would ship. The money came back the same way. Hundreds of
Interesting.
thousands of
God.
dollars a week would come through, USP or FedEx, shit like that. So, anyways, I didn't get out of the game in time. I went to prison. I got arrested. Uh,
How did you get busted? How did you get arrested? What happened?
they just put a case on me. Like that. When you have that much mail going back and forth, they have drug sniffing dogs that are in those facilities. So eventually, like your
Sure.
number gets called, right? That's just how it is. It's just a numbers game, and they were able to link package of money back to where I was living in Portland. And I had a bunch of different houses and, apartments and shit like that.
Yeah.
But, they sat on me and they finally, raided my house. They didn't find any product, but I had a bunch of money. So I was charged with money laundering. Yeah, dude, they take all your money and then they send you to prison for it. So,
There's that great line in Breaking Bad with Saul Goodman when he's speaking to Jesse Pinkman and he says, you're the worst thing for society. Do you know what that is? And he says, well, a drug dealer. He's like, wrong. You're a tax fraud. You're a tax
right,
cheat.
exactly. They
That's the
hate
big
that.
crime
They
here.
hate that.
It's a fashion. They
Yeah.
hate that. If you're bringing the coins in, as long as you're paying your taxes,
Right.
then yeah,
I know.
we'll let you get
I
on with it.
know.
But
I know.
and there's that amazing scene in the nail salon where they're talking about like the three stages of money laundering. So that's what that's what the feds got you on,
That's
was the
right.
money laundering
That's right.
charge.
Yeah.
Uh, so they take all your cash and they
Oh, I
send you to
know. I'm.
jail.
You shitting me? You
Um,
do both of these things? That's how fucked up they are.
I mean,
And then if you're a
I mean, talk,
foreigner, they deport you. But they don't just like they
do
don't
they?
just let you go back home. You got to do your time. And yeah, no, it's a great country. It's a great
Jeez. So
system.
yeah, so great. So how long were you? How long, we would say in English. Well, in English, we'd say in England. How long were you in the
Yeah,
Nick,
in the nig,
basically? Um, in the
gotta be careful
Nick,
with that one.
Nick.
You gotta be
Dear,
careful
oh
with that one over
dear.
here.
Yeah, gotta
I
be
was in a
careful with
few
that
nigs. I don't know if you can keep that in or not.
one. Probably not.
I was locked up for almost 2 years, which
Wow. So what
it
is?
doesn't seem like a lot, but for a kid, 24-year-old young man, it was enough for sure.
What was Oregon State Penitentiary like insofar as like day to day life? Like how was
Well,
it?
the Oregon State Penitentiary was, I mean, that was the roughest one, but it was also kind of the best place to do your time because there was so many inmates and so few guards that you could. It's hard to explain. Like, uh, I prefer I prefer a place where you have more freedom, and perhaps the threat, the small threat of violence. There obviously was a lot of violence, but it was usually between like gangs and shit like that. And where I was, as opposed to a place like California, where you have to join a gang when you're in a maximum security prison, and then it's very, a lot of guys that have short time, like me, they go
Hmm.
in and they catch life sentences because they have to kill somebody or they have to smuggle in drugs or they overdose. You know what I mean? Oregon is not. It's not as serious. I mean, there were a lot of there are a few people who were stabbed and killed. I saw a guy get basically beaten to death. Uh, I know this is the funny portion of the podcast, but I didn't really.
Really
I
uplifting.
was in there. I was in there on a drug charge, and so I was basically left to just operate by myself independently, and so it was.
Mm.
In that way, it wasn't very difficult. Witnessing other people's misery was probably the hardest part. You know what I mean? So people have so much time; they're never going home. So it was, but it was fascinating. And I played a lot of basketball in there. I played a lot of dominoes. I smoked some weed and shit like that, but there was no fucking around for me. Like I was like, okay, I gotta get out and I gotta get it together. But yeah, no, that it was rough, especially at the beginning when you first go in the system, because you constantly have to fight, constantly getting in fights. People are always testing you and stuff like that. So I would fight. I would go to the hole. Stick me 30 days in the box where you don't see anything. You never get out of your 24/7. You're in your cell. You're in like a 5x7. Again, you're in a 5x7,
I
just
was
like
gonna say,
this sauna right here.
like your
Yeah,
parents' sauna,
exactly. Just like my parents' sauna.
just
And
exactly the
so
same.
you just be in there and it was, you hear people screaming, losing their minds. A couple people killed themselves. So I did that like 5 or 6 times because I was constantly fighting. Um,
Wow.
but once you make a name and, you show that you're not going to be a victim, that kind of goes away. So yeah. So after that, it was, just kind of sitting there thinking about what you're going to do with your life. Which is a good thing.
What were you? What were you? What? I mean, day to day. I mean, obviously, you said it gets easier. I'm when you're getting to the end of the sentence, and you know that you're coming up to
Yeah.
the end. Did you know what you were gonna? Did you already have a plan in mind of what you were gonna go do? Um, post jail.
Yeah. So I thought, well, what do I really like to do? I don't really like to do anything, but I like to, I've always wanted to be like in show business. I would sit in my cell at night and I would just write screenplays, whatever I thought like a screenplay was for like a movie, by like candlelight. You know what I mean? I would, like a friar
It's like
banished, like the
it's like
Hunchback
something
of
out of a
Notre
Dickens
Dame.
novel.
I was writing just with like literally with a tiny little pencil. They only give you like pencils like that size, and you're just like a golf for writing your golf score. And I would just like manically writing ideas and short stories and shit like that. And then I was also doing stand-up
Sure.
comedy. They would have this like talent show night at when I was at OSP, when I was at the Oregon State Penitentiary. And so I would go down there and I would do these roasts of these of inmates and shit. And it was crazy. Like I didn't even know what I was doing was comedy at the time, but I would just fucking kill. And I became like a celebrity in there because they were like, Mitchell's roasting, the black guys this week or whatever,
Bro, you
and it
got
was
a
just
big set of fucking
brutal.
balls,
Like
Jesus.
if it wasn't mean enough, like it wouldn't do well. Like it was
Yeah, of
so
course.
they were the best audiences. So, and that kind of fits my style, anyways. So I like kind of like mean humor, although I'm not a mean guy. But it was like a catharsis for me to like get this out. And I noticed, I'm like, God, if I just say things that are true in a like a different way, that gets a laugh, as opposed to like
It's
trying to say funny things. Just say things funny, and that's that
say that again. So hang on, say that again. Instead of saying funny things, say things in a
in a
funny
funny way. Say
way.
true things in a funny way, and that's what I
Right.
still strive to do today in stand up. Like, and I'm not there yet. Like, but it's that's what
Sure.
separates good comedians from great comedians, is that great
Yeah.
comedians let go and they stop trying to think of like clever punchlines, and they just say truthful things in the way in a way that is funny, that matches who they
Yeah.
are as and their personalities.
I mean, it's a quite a good segue, that, because someone who I think, if he hadn't have been in business, would be an excellent stand-up is Donald Trump.
Oh, totally, totally.
Dude, the guy is
He's
just
he's a
an
10 out of
amazing,
10.
amazing. He is a 10 out of 10.
So
I
funny.
mean, you can't. Like I said, like if you forget politics, forget the business side of it. Like just generally as a guy, he's so quick off the
Yeah.
mark. I mean,
It-
and he's got this ability to say what everyone else is thinking, but just in a very
yeah,
comical way, which, frankly, at the end of the day, is kind of the politics in and of
of
itself, right? It's
course.
just getting like people to really sort of buy into you
That's
as a
right.
person, and he is so
Yeah.
good at that.
And he doesn't give a
What
shit.
was the?
It's amazing.
He just. It's amazing, but man, you must have some big balls, like to be in prison, taking the piss out of somebody else within jail. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
ballsy
yeah.
move.
It was I definitely didn't do it outside of the stage though. You know what I mean? Like that's why it was so cool, because like I was a way too I would never do that shit at like a table full of fucking gangbangers. You know what I mean? So that's and that's my point. Like I would never say the shit that I say on stage today outside of a podcast or the stage.
Yeah,
So I think that's what
of
people
course.
misconstrue about me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's why I think stand up is so cool, because it's like a venue for me to basically say shit that people in polite society aren't allowed to. So I just
yeah.
think that's kind of cool.
But it's funny. So I'm polite society. Yeah, I don't know. I think people are less. I think people are becoming more confident on saying what they see, and also just I think we've reached sort of that peak. I'm offended, therefore I'm
Mm,
right. I think Jordan Peterson touches on this with when it comes to comedians in general. Comedians are such an important and integral part of society, because even going back to the court jester, the jester was the only one that could take the piss out of the
right.
king, right? So there's this, so you, and I think, and you see a lot more sort of, and you can credit Rogan and Theo Von and a whole bunch of different
Right.
comedians to, um, allowing people to express themselves a lot more publicly. I think sort of, I don't know. That's kind of my take on it. I think we've reached
No,
a point
definitely. We're
of sort of,
definitely moving away from that. We have been for a couple of
definitely, and
years, So
yeah, I think so. So tell me, so you get out of jail. You've been writing these screenplays, and then And then what? Tell me what
Dude,
happens then. Where do you
so
go
I
from there?
moved to LA almost immediately, and for some reason I didn't start doing comedy for a couple of years. I think it was like 20.
Despite doing it in
Yeah,
jail,
because I was
you
like,
didn't. You
dude,
didn't.
because I was always a little
Why?
money hungry bastard. I was like, there's no money in this shit, you know? Like, I was like, this is a fucking low. I was like, this is a low art. I'm like,
It's a
this is a
low art form.
scumbag art form. I'm right. I was right about that. I stand by that to this day. It
I
is
do.
to call it an art form is to shit all over real art, but we'll call it a low art. But now there's actually a ton of money in stand up now if you can because you can build your own audience. So when I started in 2014, podcasting was already becoming like a thing, starting to
Sure.
become a thing, right? Like you hear about Rogan. I started at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles on Sunset Boulevard, and the year that I got there was the year that Joe Rogan returned to the Comedy Store after a long hiatus. And people were always like, yeah, he does this podcast that's fucking blowing up. It's huge.
Well,
And I was like, who the fuck would listen to 3 hours of this guy talk about protein powder? You know what I mean?
literally, and
Yeah,
DMT,
yeah, yeah. No
protein
shit.
powder, DMT, and
Yeah.
UFC.
I'm
That's it.
like, and I still say that. I'm like, how does somebody listen to this guy just have his mind blown just by whatever the guest is saying? Um, you can't put this in the podcast. I'm auditioning for his club. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Whatever you want. I don't give a shit. Put it all in. But
We're gonna stick the whole lot in. No edits. No
no
edits.
edits,
No
no
filter.
filter, dude. No filter. So, but anyways, I was like, this is curious. This is fascinating. So, of course, and now, by 2019, everybody's got a podcast. Definitely by the pandemic, everybody's got a pod. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to create
Including
content.
us.
Right, exactly. Got to have a podcast. That's what everybody used to say. You got to have a podcast. And then so I had some good comedy podcasts and shit, but I was like, God damn it! Like, how do I stand out? You know, just like when I was in the weed game, I was like, how do I really stand out? And so I used to watch in my YouTube feed, my YouTube algorithm. You got everybody. We all have what we watch on YouTube and shit like that. And it was all like stories about like drug. It was like craziest shit that I saw in a Mexican prison, for instance. And it was like a guy on his iPhone in a fucking dungeon with a tattooed teardrop and like knife wounds, and he was talking about the craziest shit he saw in a Mexican prison, and it had millions of views. And I was like, oh, that's fascinating. You could just talk about that shit. And then of course the other end of the spectrum would be like these like Oxford educated people for Vice News talking about the Sinaloa cartel. And you're like, ugh, I fucking hate you. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is this
I
fucking
know. Do you know? There is the Vice News War on
yeah,
Drugs, um, like subset
right,
or like a sub
right.
series, and yeah,
Yeah, and he's like
and
he
I've and,
looks
I- and
androgynous. Like maybe he's like a transgender.
he's not trans. I know, but he looks it. I know exactly
So
who you mean.
so
I know
but you see
exactly who
my
you mean.
point. So I'm like, okay, there's these two like I noticed like a niche in this kind of like space, this like drug crime space. So I was like, okay, maybe I could articulate it like articulate the life like this, cholo, like this Mexican guy, but I could articulate it like this Oxford dude, but of having lived the actual experience. So that's the genesis of the Connect, which is my podcast, and it's the reason that I my life changed and my comedy career has changed from that. So that's how it arose. Me just making videos talking about the intricacies and the economies and the culture and the geographies and the history of the game through
Mm.
telling of my story. And now we tell other people's stories. We have guests on from all different corners of the underbelly, you might say.
There's a a fellow countryman of mine, a guy called Sean Atwood. I mean, you've
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
come
yeah,
into
yeah. I've
contact
talked to
with some of
Sean.
his stuff.
Whenever I'm over
Yeah.
there, I'm gonna do his show.
You definitely have
Yeah,
to do a show because his I mean, his story is wild as well. I mean, I don't even know how a stockbroker from Cheshire ends up in an Arizona prison for mass
crazy,
ecstasy
crazy.
distribution. His story is absolutely incredible. And so on the subject of because I'm just conscious of time, and I know you got to get back to your drinking because it's the 4th of July. What I think you came over to Spain.
Yeah,
You did the hair work in Spain because I think you were meeting a guest. Am I right? Have I got that
yeah.
right?
I was trying to meet up with a guest in Spain to do an interview over there, but it didn't work out. So I just went there and got the hair surgery. You know.
Well, tell me about the hair. I mean, I can imagine, given the stress of being in your 20s, your stressful early 20s
Yeah.
was probably a contributing
Well, it was
factor.
funny. Everybody in prison is bald. Everybody who's really done hard time. I would look around and I would just see all of these early balding men, but men that had
Mm,
that had aged 15 years in a year, and
God, yeah, I bet.
that's what calmed me down. It wasn't the guy getting killed. It wasn't the rioting. It wasn't the threats of
It was,
violence. It was
it
the
was the
receding hairlines that made me
yeah.
I would force myself to meditate. I'm like, I'm not going to stress out, dude. That's what it was. It was vanity.
It was it's not. It wasn't aspirations to look like a member of the Aryan
Exactly.
Brotherhood.
No,
No.
no, no, no. It was not. It was not. It was. Yeah, those guys. I guess it works out for them because they're all bald.
Kill two birds with one stone, dude.
But yeah, but it didn't really. The widow's peak. I mean, it didn't really start thinning. I made it to 35 when I was really starting to be
Mm.
like, oh shit, that comb over is looking more and more.
It can only go so
Yeah,
far.
it's real. It's looking it really is looking artificial at this point. And Salvar, uh,
Salva, yeah, Salva.
Salva, my boy, he's a fan of the show. He hit me up. He must have seen an Instagram post I made where the wind hit the hair. I was like, I remember where I was at too. I was fucking in New York, rolling around the streets of Manhattan with a guest of the Connect. And I was taking a little, it was drop top. It was New York in spring, right? The best place on earth.
Lovely.
And he saw the wind take my hair like that, right? And as you can see, the line wasn't always like that. It went all the way back, and there was a bunch of space.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was like, "Hi, I'm Salvar. I'm from Iceland. Would you like? I noticed your hairline is receding. Have you ever thought about hair surgery?" And I was like, "As a matter of fucking fact, I have. I have." And so yeah, that's how the relationship went. That's how
Amazing.
I was really trusted the dude, and because I
Yeah.
trust Northern Europeans, and this is gonna be racist. Hey,
Go on.
sliding in the
It's
couple
all
of racial
right. Go
stereotypes.
for it.
When a guy from Iceland, they just have their shit together.
Totally.
And his fucking assistant in Malaga, Spain, was German, and
Yeah.
that I'm like, okay,
This is a serious
yeah, yeah,
outfit.
these fools
Yeah.
ain't fucking around. You know what I mean? I don't want some Spaniard that's still groggy from his siesta doing this doing this dexterity process.
Just doing this incredibly
Yeah.
intricate process, but the guy's exhausted from a 4 hour
Yeah,
nap
yeah.
at
And he was
lunch.
out drinking, and he's like, he doesn't,
It's just,
the exam to get in was not that difficult, and he just
well, he probably paid for the certificate.
right, right, exactly,
Yeah, right.
exactly. So I don't know what you do in the Sao Paulo office, but I hope you bring those guys in. I'm sure that's
Well,
where a
listen,
lot of Germans fled to back in the day, if you know what I mean.
let's be honest. I, I trust me. I'm the son of a German. and I'm the father of a Brazilian. So I'm well aware of
Oh,
all of
really? Oh,
this.
God.
Oh yeah,
That's
oh yeah,
wild. Well, anyways, the past is the past. But, but, uh, my point was I really trusted the guy. And yeah, they just
yeah.
delivered. And, and I really, I wanted to come do this podcast because I can't tell you how many people are just like, dude, I've seen so many bad I've seen so many bad surgeries, and it's like yours looks.
Yeah.
Whoever did it is dynamite. Dynamite.
Whoever did mine.
What's that?
Whoever did mine, do you
No,
mean?
whoever did. I'm
Because I got
saying,
mine.
well, yes, yours looks amazing too. But I'm saying, like when I tell people I got the surgery, they're blown away.
One of the things, the sign of a really good procedure is that it's almost impossible, unless you know what you're looking for. It's virtually impossible. So people don't know mine. They certainly wouldn't know that you've had yours done. But some people, I mean, I've got a friend of mine, and his brother did it in Turkey, and he came back. And if I could, and I could tell you, I mean, the line, you could set your watch to his hairline. It's that
Right.
precise, and it's a bit like, it's like, dude, like, come on, like, I mean, like, it's honestly like,
Yeah.
it's like the equator.
Right.
It's just a straight line going across his forehead. But I was looking on your Instagram, dude. And yeah, it's. I mean, I can see it now, obviously on camera as well. Really, really good. Really, when was it?
It
When
was
did you
almost
do
a
yours?
year. It was almost a
It's
year
been
to the day.
really
July. It was the middle of July.
wow. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's really because it took me. I'm now coming up to about 2 years in November, I think, something
Yeah.
like that. And they say it can take up to 18 months for the hair for the follicles to really grow out and for it to start to for it to be complete, really. But yours, and I think it might be also the fact you've got quite wavy hair.
Sure.
Yours looks perfect already, and it's only been less than
So
a
I
year.
wonder if I'm
So
gonna get another growth spurt, dude. Am I gonna get it?
get a second wind.
Is it gonna be like COVID? Like, is there gonna be another surge?
Yeah, there's going to be a second
Yeah,
wave.
yeah.
Quite literally. I mean that. Yeah, dude. I mean it's funny what you say. Like it's you see a lot of horror stories, right? I think that was. It's funny also that you say about Brazil because I did mine in Sao Paulo, and the sort of the hair surgery, or I think surgery just in general, particularly for guys, is a lot more common in Brazil than it is in Europe. I think there's still, I don't know, I think stigma is the wrong word, but I still think it's a little bit of a, is this really what guys
Right.
do? But I don't know. I think the zeitgeist, so it's certainly the society's attitudes towards it, particularly for guys, is changing quite a lot. Right?
Yeah, no, there's no excuse not to have it unless you're fucking poor. Get your shit together, buddy.
Just get
Start a hot podcast. I did it.
Listen, Johnny, I appreciate your time, dude. I know we've got to wrap up.
Sure, of course.
When are you next in London?
Dude, I've never been to London. I have no plans. No plans to come to London.
Beg your pardon?
I know.
You've never been to London.
I know how great it is. Trust me. I mean, all our ancestors, we come from Scotland and that whole area, probably England too, but definitely, we're Northern Europeans. We're brethren. So, but I have no fucking plans.
The US comedy scene is really big here, and I think what was it? It was it last year or the year before? Bill Burr sold out the Royal Albert Hall. Right. I mean that's an incredible feat in and of itself. I mean even for Led Zeppelin wouldn't do that, and Bill Burr does, right? But dude, you got to get here. So come on, but we got to get you over
bro.
here.
Well, let's have a pint. Let's have a fucking pint. Let's let's frolic. Let's beat up some immigrants, man. Let's. Just kidding. I'm just joking. Well, listen, I think it's something funny to say.
No. Listen. Today is a very big day for us because today's obviously the 4th of July. We've got a big election going on today. And you guys have got obviously your Independence Day to celebrate. So I'm going to let you go, brother.
Thanks, buddy. But yeah.
Anyway,
I gotta just tell Salvar. He's changed my life. If he needs any wet work done, if anybody owes him money, I'm there. You know what I mean? I'll go collect for him. Yeah,
Even in Brazil, would you go down to Brazil?
no, those guys will kill me. But you know, yeah, it's he's a fucking kingpin. I don't know what else to
Yeah,
say.
he's a
So,
legend.
but yeah, no, I'm gonna give you guys like, and I'm trying to promote for him. You know, I've been asking him for a year, like when can I have a very large podcast following. I'm happy to, you know, I'm trying to drum up some business for him. So
Definitely, dude. Promote it
yeah,
and listen. And I'll let you know when I'm coming out to the US. We'll we'll go for a couple of
yeah,
drinks.
yeah. I'm in LA, man. I'm around. I'm on the beach, you know, so it's tough to beat. It's
Jeez, Laguna Beach. No,
no,
not Laguna
I
Beach.
live in
Where is
Santa
it? Venice
Monica.
Beach.
I live in Santa
Are
Monica.
you in
Yeah.
Santa Monica? Yeah. And tell listeners and everyone else like where can they find you on your socials, all that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
so The Connect is my podcast, The Connect with Johnny Mitchell. I'm on Instagram at Mr. Johnny Mitchell. TikTok is booming, same as my Instagram. And yeah, that's it. You know, if they're in the U.S., I'm traveling all around. All my dates are on my Instagram or linktree.com/Johnny Mitchell. And yeah, dude, once I get more famous, man, we're gonna be over there. I'll be selling out, you know, I don't know, some kind of venue over in London.
And also Days of the Trap.
Oh
You can
wow,
still get that,
yeah,
right?
Jesus, I do still have
Jeez,
that.
come on, dude.
Wow, you really did your homework. Yeah, no, my novel, which is based on my life and what you heard here,
Mhm.
is called Days of the Trap. The trap is, of
And you can get
course,
that
that's vernacular for drug dealing that white America stole from black people. But that is
trap
that was
trap
the
houses.
trap house, the trap car, and Days of the Trap. And it's a unique story about what bootlegging. I was the last American
Amazing.
bootlegger, which I think is pretty cool actually. And so, you know, looking
And you can get you can get this book at
yeah,
Amazon, obviously
yep,
Borders, Barnes and Noble,
yep,
all your usual stores.
exactly.
Uh, all right, dude. Listen, absolute pleasure. I'm gonna love you and leave you. Get back to the drinking. Get back to the celebrating. Be sure to listen out for those fireworks and make sure it's not a gun. All
Thanks,
right.
Joshy. Appreciate it, buddy.
No worries. Peace out, brother. Love
Peace.
you to see you.